Assistant today. How many of you have used it? Ever? Okay. Those of you who haven't used it? Ever? All of you have used it. We had some iOS users when I think somebody asked. You have also used it. Are you aware there's a Google Assistant app for iOS as well? Okay, that's cool, that's cool. So let's start. Okay. What is Google Assistant? We talk about moving towards machine learning, AI first and everything. So that is Google's effort to bring together the machine learning, speech recognition, and language understanding. So do you understand the difference between speech recognition and language understanding? What would it be? Okay, so speech recognition is just being able to recognize what a user is saying. Okay, speech to text, which in itself was a huge problem. But after you've understood, like you've got the text out of it, what does the user mean? That is language understanding. Okay, so Google, with its effort with Assistant, is trying to bring all of this together in the form of Google Assistant, where you can just talk to a device and let it perform actions for you, be able to understand everything. Okay? So we are moving to, like, let's say we are moving to AI first, but does it mean we leave everything else? Like, we worked on mobile, we worked on web. Do we leave that behind? No, right? We have to bring that power of machine learning and AI to these devices, to these products. And who is developing them? Like the young developers, like all of you sitting here right now, you need to be able to harness this power, right? So going into machine learning, language understanding in itself could take years. How to be able to productionize it, to build an app around it, to get it to users, could take another year or two. How to streamline that process. That is what Actions on Google is. So let's start. So another thing that Google is working on with Assistant is recognizing the different languages you can speak to it with. So every language has its own accent. Like even English, we speak it in a different accent. Americans speak it, British, Canadian. There's like a ton of languages and accents to work with. So imagine that you are building a product and you don't have to worry about all of that. Assistant already has all of that incorporated in it. There are three parts to the Assistant. First of all is all the devices it works on. Okay, phones, Google Home, your watches, your cars, everything that can be powered by Android, your Assistant can run on it. Google Assistant in itself is the technology behind it. How does it recognize your voice? How does it perform all the actions? That is Google Assistant. What is Actions on Google? Anyone is aware of what Actions on Google is?
So using Actions on Google, we can develop small or big apps which work directly with the Google Assistant on our phones. Like
yes, exactly. It's a developer API for Google Assistant. Isn't that amazing? Like, you can harness the whole power of Assistant and build an app for yourself. So this shows how many devices the Assistant is on. A simple guess, it's more than 400 million devices all over the world. So if you're building something for the Assistant, it automatically ships to mobiles, to Google Homes, to your cars, to your watches. Like, how many of you actually build an app for an Android watch? You can, sure. Like a small percentage of you, right? If you're building it for Google Assistant, it's automatically there as well. So let's look at how Google Assistant works. Let's say you talk to the hardware, you talk to your device, you talk to the home. There's a whole stack of machine learning that comes into play. It converts, it takes an NLP, it takes knowledge graph, it takes the user's information into account, and it parses all that information and provides it in form of simple strings and entities that the user can use. Okay, this goes to your service. Anything like a small API that you've built, you get small strings, a JSON API that you can use and perform actions on it, send it back to the Assistant, and the Assistant will be able to perform the related action. Okay, let's take an example. You have built a chef and you want to recommend recipes to the users. what does the user tell you? The user tells you what the user is in the mood for. Okay, using all the APIs of the assistant, you're able to gather more information. Like you can prompt the user for more information. And after a point, when you've gathered all the information, it just goes to your API and performs the action. In middle of all of this, you don't have to do, like, you might not even have to code a single line. You won't have to understand NLP. You won't have to see like what went into it. You won't have to pass strings. Okay. Let's take a look at a small demo.
Okay, Google, let me talk to Personal Chef.
Sure, here's Personal Chef. Hi, I'm your personal chef. What are you in the mood for?
Well, it's kind of cold outside, so I'd like something to warm me up, like a hot soup, and I want it fast.
All right, what protein would you like to use?
I have some chicken and also some canned tomatoes.
Okay, well, I think you should try the chicken tomato soup recipe I found on example.com.
Sounds good to me.
Seemed like a pretty simple conversation, right? If you were talking to another human, you would be able to understand very simply what the user meant. But what if you're a machine? Can anybody understand how complex what the person said was to understand for a machine? Okay, let's look at the conversation. This is the conversation that the user took place with the assistant. The user used a lot of confusing words. It's cold outside. I want a hot soup, and I want it quick. If you're passing that kind of text, would you easily be able to recognize what the user meant? What if the user wanted something cold to have, and the temperature was hot? And like being able to recognize all of this, being able to pass this text, that is the power of Assistant. And that is what you get when you're trying to build an app for Assistant. It'll all be done for you. And now, so this is the response that the Assistant gave. Even in that, you can identify the factors that they had to be worked with, right? These are entities that the assistant was able to recognize. Put very simply, user gives an input. There's an API request to the assistant that just passes all of your speech to text there. It's passed into actions and intents and whatever you want to perform. And you give it back a response, which is converted into a conversation, and the assistant just speaks it out for you. Okay? Where does all the magic happen? Where does all the NLP magic actually happen? That is dialogue flow. In any kind of a conversation, there are two important things to take care of. That's intent matching and entities. What did the user mean? That is the intent. On what factors does that intent depend? Those are the entities. And this is a very hard problem to solve in NLP. And Assistant does it for you. This is where dialogue flow comes in the previous graph that we saw. Assistant performs all the ML. Dialogue flow will be able to extract the intent and the entities out of your text and just provide it to your API. Okay? And all you have to do is give back an action. Just a simple flow of the same thing. You said, find me a recipe. It goes to the assistant. It goes to the dialogue flow. Here, it recognizes the entity itself is what you want a recipe for, and your API returns it. Now, let's look at how the learning takes place. How do you think the dialogue flow will be able to recognize all of your entities and extraction? Do you have to tell it? There's a very simple platform. This is console.dialogflow.com. Okay, you go up there, you type a bunch of sentences, and you train a model. As soon as you hit save, it'll train a model on your sentences. And it'll extract out all the entities from your sentences. So you see, if you said chickens sounds good to me, it'll extract out chicken from the first sentence. And every kind of entity or intent that it can see, it'll extract it out. In the end, you'll get a list of everything that it found in your sentences. What do you have to do now? You have to mark anything that you absolutely require from the user and something that might be extra information. Just have to mark it out. Okay. Now, what happens if the user does not provide some information that you absolutely require? Yes, exactly. You just provide another sentence over here that the assistant will speak out so that it can get more information. Okay? Like we saw in the video itself, the person said he's in mood for soup. And the assistant asked her, okay, what kind of protein do you have? Because protein and vegetable is something in that demo that we would have marked as required. And the user spoke that. And even if user doesn't speak both of those things in the same sentence, the assistant can provide more prompts. So you can see how all of this was done just by writing some few lines of speech and not having to write any code at all. And it's very easy to test it out. You just have a testing platform at the right. You type, you can have an actual conversation with the assistant right there. You can see how well your model performs. Okay? And it's a very amazing platform. You can share your whatever agent that you've built, you can share it, you can upload it somewhere. You can just take it for a spin. Okay, you want to integrate it. There's an integration on the, right there. There are integrations. You click on that. You can make a chatbot. You can be on the assistant in seconds. You can do all of that from right here. So we talked about how all of it works. Okay, the machine learning part of it. And at the end, we're trying to build a product. What is most important while building a product? That the users have to like it. Okay, that doesn't matter how good it performs or how, what kind of complex action you're performing. It has to be simple enough and beautiful enough for the users to understand it. So how do we go about that? Now, assistant and conversational actions are a new platform for all of us, right? So it's highly recommended when you go out and try and build an app for assistant, go through all these, there's a website over here, go through all the design actions that can be taken place, read through it. How can you make the user experience better when you're having a conversation? And it's not just about a conversation. In a home, it's just audio output. When you're using your own devices, you have a screen to work with, like very small prompts and very small actions that you can still show for the assistant. And you can use them in combination with your conversation to enhance the experience. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. Like it has to be just for talking and also some visual inputs. Some examples here, you can just have some simple display text, or the prompts, they can either be full sentences or they can just be small chips at the bottom. Like I wanted soup, you get prompts at the bottom, chicken soup, tomato soup, anything like that. Or if it's about, like, if the user is asking for more information, you can show a big screen and all the information that goes with it. And you can also have like simple lists or carousels that the user can interact with. We talked about different languages and accents in the beginning. Speech synthesis is very important. The assistant is talking to the user. You want to emphasize certain parts, like what kind of protein do you have? That protein, or what kind of vegetables does the user have? In these sentences, the important thing are the vegetables and everything. Right? You want to emphasize those, that the user does not miss out on those. So here you can, using speech synthesis markup language, you can actually modify the pitch, the sound, and the loudness of it. And some things to also keep in mind is you play music on your assistant, right? You can play music on your phone. How does your app perform in those conditions? It should be able to handle music in the background. So these are some things that you should keep in mind when building an app for the assistant. So all of you, like, how many of you are app developers over here? Permissions is a big issue, right? When developing apps. Yeah, you have to ask for permissions right at the beginning. Assistant also takes care of that for you. Anything like give me bookstores near me. So you just like add those 2 lines of code, the assistant will ask for the permission from the user. And Google is working on IDing the users by their voice. So when somebody else cannot give permission to their assistant for something that the user might not want. So when they say, grab my zip code, it will identify that it's the same user that owns that device. and give permission accordingly. And if your service requires any kind of account authorization, that is also there. It can use the pre-existing accounts. If you're looking for payments and if you're looking for building a service that books something for the users, all of that is integrated. And the amazing part being, not just that, all of this UI is also pre-built. That you can add items to your list, the whole payment gateway is built for the assistant. So say, we talk, like in many of the presentations today, we saw the problem of having to download apps, having to pertain users. Have you ever downloaded an assistant app? Have you ever had to? No, right? If you have the assistant, you have all the apps that have been built for the assistant right there. And this is something that I found really amazing. Anyone who's into hardware can also use Google Assistant. So this is a demo of something that took place at I/O last year. The Google Assistant was bound to a mocktail maker, and you could just walk up to it, tell what drink you want, and it'll mix it up for you. And you can actually do it yourself. It's just a simple, you need a microphone, you need speakers, a Raspberry Pi, and you're done, you're set. Okay? And you can integrate it with any hardware that you want. So we talked about how to build it, how good it should be, how do we actually reach the users. Doesn't matter if you build a great product, we need to reach the users. And let's see how Assistant helps us with that. How many of you are familiar with deep links? What deep links are? Okay, so you don't just need to open up your app, you can just directly tell the assistant that, let's say Personal Chef is the name of your app. So you can just directly tell the assistant, Personal Chef, give me a recipe for this, right there. And the initial prompt will be done away with, it will recognize all your actions, and it will give you the recipe right there. You bypass all of the developer effort into setting up the initial stack. You don't have to do the ML work, you don't have to build an app, you don't have to have users install it. It's all done for you. So that was when the user explicitly called out the name of your app. Let's say your app is something that lets user play a game. So in case the user just says, okay, Google, I want to play a game. It'll show up, the list of options that show up will have your app in it. So user will be able to discover your app very, very easily. And then, of course, there's the Google Assistant directory, where all apps are right there. The amazing part, again, that they don't need to install anything or pay for anything. They just start it right there. So as developers, where do you start? Are you interested enough to try this out? So where do you start? Go to this, developers.google.com/actions. And the amazing part, you might not even need to go to Dialogflow. Okay? There are templates right there. As a fresh start, you can just use the templates. Or you can obviously develop from scratch as the next step. So these are some of the simple apps that have been built using a template. You give it some questions, you give it some answers, right? Very easy. And your app is shipped. There are some of the code labs over here. There's some simple based on design and complex to walk you through the entire process. And even when you go back to your campuses from here, I'm pretty sure you'll be part of some workshops and you'll be part of some study groups. You can spread information about these kind of things that the students can build for. So this is something to get you interested in it. Right now, there's a promotional program for developers that's taking place for Assistant. All you need to do is build an app. There's some very minor preconditions to it. You need to build an app and publish it. Like, publishing is also a small step in it, and users should be able to interact with your application. It's applicable for people all over the world. You get a free t-shirt and $200 worth of Google Cloud credits for a year. Now are you all going to try it out? So you should definitely try this. Yeah? You already been a part of this, right? Nice. Did you get your shirt? It'll ship in. Okay. So yes, do try this out, and build more complex apps. As you go through it, you'll be able to see the loopholes and conversation. It's very necessary to not feel like you're talking to a machine, right? It's very necessary to make the users feel like they're actually talking to a human. So you need to have as many prompts and as many results as possible. So keep trying it out and build an amazing app for Assistant.